Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Carnage Reviews. My name is Eric. We are in the month of September, so you know what that means. We're that much closer to every horror fan's favorite holiday, Halloween. I thought what might make an interesting video is to talk about a series of films that, well, center around Halloween. And you got to admit, when you think of Halloween, the first thing that comes to mind is Michael Myers and that badass theme song. I'm not going to be talking about the original Halloween series. That's a video for another time. I'm going to be talking about the most recent Halloween film series, the David Gordon Green Blumhouse Halloween series. And just so you guys know, I'm going to be doing a recap of all 3 films in this series, so this video will be very spoiler heavy. I feel like with these films, the first one is pretty generally well liked, and then the second one maybe a bit more divided. I know some people liked it, some people didn't. And then the third film, the last film, Halloween Ends, people just seem to hate that film. But as a whole, how is the series? Do these films represent Michael Myers and what the original series was all about? Let's find out. And real quick, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Just click that subscribe button, along with the bell icon, to keep up to date with my latest content. The first film in the series is simply called Halloween. It's a strange title choice, as this film is not a remake but a sequel to the first film. It is in a way a soft reboot, so I suppose it makes sense. Anyway, as I said, this is a direct sequel to the first film, so anything that happened in Halloween 2, 4, 5, 6, H2O Resurrection does not matter. No Jamie, no Curse of Thorn, no Busta Rhymes. Thank fuck for that. The film opens with 2 English journalists doing a podcast on Michael Myers and the havoc he raised on Halloween night. His new doctor, the new Loomis, explains to them that Michael is very self-aware and that he can speak but chooses not to. They meet with Michael, where they show him the mask that he wore during his killing spree, trying to get him to speak. We then see Laurie, who lives on the outskirts of Haddonfield. She is a wreck, still haunted by the events that took place, training and preparing for when Michael might come after her again. She also has a daughter, not Jamie, and a granddaughter. Michael is being transferred to another prison. Never a good idea. His doctor goes with him. Of course, the bus crashes and Michael escapes. He catches up to the podcast journalists, finds himself his favorite outfit, and takes back his mask. Laurie finds out that the bus has crashed and Michael is on the loose. She goes into panic mode and prepares for battle, to protect herself and her family. Michael goes on a rampage, killing anyone and everyone he comes into contact with. It's revealed Michael's doctor doesn't really agree with Dr. Loomis's diagnosis and wants to help Michael by getting him in contact with his old friend Laurie Strode. He believes Michael will talk when he gets in contact with Laurie. The whole thing causes him to lose his head.
Say something.
The film concludes with Laurie, her daughter, and granddaughter having a standoff with Michael at Laurie's house. They lure him into a hidden basement where they trap him inside. They set the house on fire, and they escape on the back of someone's pickup truck. Halloween Kills takes place on the same night as the first film. The film opens with Cameron, Allison's boyfriend, finding Sheriff Hawkins after he was stabbed by Michael's doctor. We see a flashback of a rookie Hawkins having an encounter with Michael Myers where he accidentally shoots his partner dead while attempting to save him from Michael. This event takes place in 1878 on the same night Dr. Loomis shot Michael 6 times. In the present day, we see an adult Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace celebrating the 40th anniversary of Michael being captured. Joining them are Marion Chambers, the nurse who was attacked by Michael when he escaped in 1978, and Lonnie Elam, who had an encounter with Michael as a kid, which was also shown in a flashback at the beginning of the film. Much to the dismay of Laurie, her daughter, and granddaughter, after setting her house on fire with Michael inside, a crew of firemen arrive on scene, where Michael dispatches them in a rather epic and bloody encounter. Laurie is taken to the hospital, where the original sheriff of Haddonfield is now a security guard. Having escaped the fire, Michael once again goes on a murderous killing spree, even more brutal than in the previous film. When Tommy and the others learn that Michael has escaped, they form a mob to go after him. They mistakenly confuse him with another mental patient that escaped the same night that Michael did. Laurie sits in the hospital, much like the original second film, while Michael continues his rampage, eventually having an encounter with Allison, Laurie's granddaughter, and her boyfriend. He brutally attacks Allison and kills her boyfriend. Laurie's daughter shows up and attacks Michael, stealing his mask to lure him outside, where he is attacked by a mob of people. Her daughter goes to check on Allison as the mob continues their attack. They let their guard down, and Michael gets up and brutally kills them all. Back at the Myers house, where the attack on Allison took place, Laurie's daughter sees a vision of a young Michael standing in his sister's bedroom window. She goes upstairs and is brutally killed by Michael as Laurie looks out her hospital room window. Halloween Ends, the final film in the series, is very different in tone compared to the first two films. The movie opens on Halloween 2019. We are introduced to a new character named Corey, who is spending Halloween night babysitting a bratty kid. The kid hides on him and eventually locks Corey upstairs. Corey kicks the door open, which hits the kid in the face, causing him to fall to his death. In the present, Corey has been labeled an outcast and a freak. He works at his father's garage and deals with a very protective and overbearing mother. Laurie, now living with her granddaughter Allison, is working on a book, telling her story of her encounter with Michael Myers and how it affected the town of Haddonfield and the people within. She has a much more positive attitude and is trying to get her life back together. Since the events of Halloween Kills, Michael has disappeared. After getting injured due to some asshole high school kids, Laurie, who stands up for Corey, takes him to a medical clinic where Allison just so happens to work. There is mutual attraction between Corey and Allison, who go on a date at a bar. Corey and Allison are having a good time, but that good time is ruined when Corey runs into the mother of the child he was babysitting. Corey leaves the bar and is confronted by those same asshole kids from earlier. He is attacked and thrown off a bridge. He is dragged into a sewer where Michael has been hiding this entire time. Michael chokes Corey as he stares into his eyes, having a vision of all the horrible events that have plagued him. Michael lets him go and allows him to escape, where he is confronted by an old man who threatens him and attempts to stab him with a knife. While in a struggle, Corey stabs and kills the old man. While on a date, Allison and Corey are disrupted by her ex-boyfriend, which later leads to Corey luring him to the sewer, where he is killed by Michael. Corey wants Michael to teach him. Corey begins to change, becoming more disconnected and violent as he and Michael kill together. Laurie believes that Corey has been infected by Michael's evil and warns Allison to stay away from him. Corey goes back to the sewers to fight Michael for his mask, where he successfully steals it. He goes on a rampage, killing the asshole kids that bothered him before by luring them to his father's junkyard. The film concludes at Laurie's house, where she fakes a suicide to trick Corey. She attacks him and he falls down the stairs. Corey then stabs himself in the neck to frame her for his death. Allison shows up at the house and leaves distraught. Michael then shows up, takes back his mask, and a showdown with Laurie begins. She's able to pin him down to her kitchen table where she slits his throat. Laurie, Allison, the police, and the rest of the town take Michael's body to the junkyard, where they put it in an industrial shredder, crushing it. The film ends with Allison and Laurie making up. Allison leaves Haddonfield, and Laurie finishes her book. Sheriff Hawkins arrives at her home, and they rekindle their past romance. The original Halloween is one of my favorite horror films of all time. It really kickstarted my love affair with the genre. At 10 years old, I was obsessed with Michael Myers. I remember my mom bought me a VHS copy of Halloween 2, and I watched it so many damn times that I wore out the tape. The Halloween series of films as a whole are very strange. They have alternate timelines, alternate characters, a story that has nothing to even do with Michael Myers, by the way of Halloween 3. The series is very much a choose-your-own-adventure. In the original series of films, Halloween 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, you can't really count Halloween 3 because it has nothing to do with Michael Myers. You have Laurie in the first two films fighting Michael Myers, and then in Halloween 4 and 5, you have Jamie, which is the daughter of Laurie, who Michael seeks after now. And then you have the reason for Michael killing linked to some strange cult. Really, the best part about these films is that Dr. Loomis is in them all. And then you have Halloween H2O and Resurrection. Halloween H2O is a sequel to the first two films, so these films ignore anything that happened in 4, 5, and 6. In these films, you have Laurie, and she has a son. There's no mention of Jamie because she doesn't exist. And Michael just randomly appears in this one. There's really no explanation for where he's been or what happened to him. He just appears. And then the less said about Resurrection, the better. And then, after those two films, we get the Rob Zombie remake, which, I didn't mind the first half of it, but then after that, it just kind of sucked. It was an interesting idea, although I don't think it worked for what Michael Myers is about. He tried to give Michael a backstory and make him human, which is kind of missing the whole point of what Halloween is, in my opinion. And then the sequel that he made after that, ugh, honestly, I couldn't even finish it. It was just that bad. So when I first learned that Halloween was going to be remade yet again, I rolled my eyes and groaned. But then when I found out that John Carpenter was going to make a return to the series, it did pique my interest a bit. I didn't really care about Jamie Lee Curtis coming back because, well, she came back in Halloween H2O, and we all saw how that turned out. Once I saw the trailer and I learned that this was not really a remake, but a direct sequel to the first film, I thought, interesting. I mean, by this time, we're already used to the series being reworked and reimagined and alternate timelines and all that good stuff. What more harm could it do? Maybe this is the injection the series needed to get back on track. So I went to the movie theater, I think a week after the movie opened, and I saw it. And I really enjoyed it, actually. I remember really liking it. And I liked it so much that I made a point of seeing the other two films when they came out in theaters as well. It kind of became a nice little tradition as the movies actually came out around Halloween, which was nice. So it had been some time since I watched these movies, so I sat down and I rewatched all three films back to back. Do they redefine the horror genre? Do they bring anything new to the slasher genre? No. They're not perfect films by any means, but you know what? They're fun, and they're a nice tribute to Michael Myers and the Halloween films in general. Let's start with the music. All three films in this series were scored by the man himself, John Carpenter, along with his son. No matter what you think of these films, you have to admit, all three of them have amazing, amazing soundtracks. John Carpenter is not only a great director, but a great composer as well, and his contribution in this aspect really makes these films feel like Halloween films. The Mask. Any fan of Halloween and Michael Myers knows how important the mask is, and I don't think the mask has looked this good since the original Halloween 2. It's a very, very faithful adaptation of how the original mask looked in the first film. If I can recall, I think in the Rob Zombie remake, I think I remember the mask looking pretty good there too, but I can't quite remember. Another thing that stands out to me in these films are the characters. The characters, at least to me, are really likable and realistic, even the annoying ones. For example, Allison's friends in their first film. They're teenagers, so of course they're annoying because, well, they're kids, and kids can be annoying sometimes. That's just how they are. But they act like realistic teenagers. They don't act like the typical teenagers that you would see in most slasher films. I mean, like in any slasher film, some of the characters here are simply in the movie to be killed by Michael, but there's a bit more depth to them than you typically see in these type of characters. The look of these films, especially the first one, it makes you feel like you're watching a Halloween movie, which is good. And it captures the essence of the Halloween season perfectly, too. I love the scene in the first film when Michael arrives in Haddonfield and the camera's following him around in that classic way that the camera does as he goes on a rampage. And I like the nice little nod to Halloween 2 as well. So even though these films are set in an alternate universe from the other films, the original series, they still pay tribute to those films with tiny little Easter eggs. For example, you see the masks in Halloween 3, the Halloween 2 example I mentioned a little bit ago. And then there's a scene where this cop is talking to the sheriff about how, with Michael escaping, they can't really ban Halloween, and then he laughs, which is funny to me because if I'm remembering correctly, I think John Carpenter, the original idea for Halloween 4, when he was involved in that, is that it was going to be about Haddonfield banning Halloween.
What are we gonna do? Cancel Halloween?
The one thing I really wasn't a fan of in Halloween 2018 was Michael's doctor, the new Loomis. Although it was an interesting plot twist to have him on Michael's side, I just feel like it didn't really go anywhere. At least we got a pretty cool kill out of it, though. Halloween Kills, I think, is my favorite out of all three films in the series. One could argue that it was out of character for Michael to be going on the rampage like he did in this film. In previous films, in the original films anyways, it was more about the cat and mouse game. What you have to realize, though, is that this is a different timeline. And if the events from the previous films don't exist in this timeline, then neither does that Michael. I mean, think about it. He killed, if we're going just by this timeline, and these are sequels to the direct first film, he killed people in 1978. And I don't know how many people did he kill in Halloween, the original? It wasn't that many. I mean, it was a number, but not that many. So he killed that amount of people in 1978. So he waited all that time up until 2018. His bloodlust must be running rampant. So it would make sense that he would be going on a rampage because he's a killer and he likes to kill clearly. So he's waiting all that time. So of course he's going to be like a kid in a candy store. I think my favorite scene in Halloween Kills is the flashback scene to 1978, which is the night of Michael being shot 6 times by Dr. Loomis. It's very well done. It looks great. It's very reminiscent of the first film, and it has some nice little nods to it too, especially in the shots and everything. And Dr. Loomis is in this flashback, and whoever they had play him looks eerily like Donald Pleasance. It's very eerie. He even sounds like him too, which is pretty cool. Anthony Michael Hall does a really good job as Tommy Doyle, so much so that I wish he survived in this film so he could have been in the next one. It was also really cool seeing the nurse from Halloween 78 come back. They did a really cool recreation of that car scene too, which I thought was neat. I will admit that the whole evil dies tonight thing is kind of cringy, and I found it laughable and dumb when in the hospital they thought that that short, fat guy with long hair was Michael Myers. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, I guess you could argue that none of these people had seen Michael Myers before, but come on. I mean, after all this time, there had to have been some kind of description of what he looked like in the mask, and especially his height. I mean, this was a short, fat guy, and Michael was a tall dude. I mean, come on. And I don't care what anyone says. The fireman versus Michael Myers scene is fucking epic. So my recap of Halloween Kills is of the theatrical version. But when I rewatched all the movies, I decided to watch the extended cut of Halloween Kills because I hadn't seen it before and I wanted to see how different it was. It's basically the same movie with just some minor scenes here or there. The ending, however, is different, and it's different enough to just change the whole outlook of the film, basically. So the same thing happens in both endings, basically. We see Laurie's daughter outside the Myers house. She looks up at the window of Judith Myers' bedroom and she sees a vision of young Michael. She goes upstairs and is looking out the window, and Michael stabs her and kills her. The difference with the extended cut is that we see Laurie try to call her daughter, and of course she doesn't answer because she's dead. But the phone does get answered, and you hear Michael breathing. And she hangs up the phone, and she says to herself, "I'm coming for you, Michael." And she walks out of the hospital with a knife in her hand. So it's probably for the best that they took that ending out, because if they had kept that ending in the theatrical version and then had come out with Halloween Ends after that, that would have pissed people off even more. Halloween Ends gets so much hate. And you know what? I get it. Where the fuck is Michael Myers? Who the fuck is Corey? Where the fuck is the epic showdown between Laurie and Michael? I mean, they should have had Halloween Ends start where Halloween Kills ended. And they should have had the epic showdown with Laurie and Michael. That is what was promised in Halloween Kills, and that is what they should have delivered here. When you look at it from a creative standpoint, what else could they have done, really? I mean, how much more can you see of Michael just killing people in Haddonfield before it gets boring? And you can't really have a hour and 30-minute long battle between Laurie and Michael either. I mean, it's not a wrestling match, for Christ's sake. And you know, I actually really liked Halloween Ends. Sure, the tone is way different than the other two films, and it is very jarring at first, but once you get settled in, and if you look at it with an open mind, it's really not as bad as everyone says it is. And I know I've heard others say this as well, but the film really gives off a Christine sort of vibe, which is another John Carpenter movie, which, for those that don't know, was an adaptation of a Stephen King book. Christine is about a guy, a dork, basically named Arnie, I think was his name. Arnie? Was it Arnie? I think so. But he's a dork, and he basically becomes obsessed with his car that's named Christine that he restores, and the car is evil, and it slowly begins to change Arnie. Corey in Halloween Ends is a very similar character. He's a loser, an outcast, he gets made fun of, he has an overbearing mother, he becomes obsessed with Michael, and the evil consumes him and makes him change. Hell, he even works in a garage. And after Halloween Kills, people were not expecting this. The thing with horror fans is they are fickle. And when you mess with a series they love and you make changes that just change the whole tone and outlook of the series, if they don't like it, they're going to let you know. So, we do get a final battle of sorts between Michael and Laurie in this film, but it's not till the very end. And it feels rushed and thrown together. It's almost like they showed the film in a test screening, people were pissed, and they're like, oh fuck, we need to do something. So they shot this last minute. In the other two films in the series, Michael and Laurie are kept pretty far apart, which makes sense. You want to do that. You want to keep your hero and your villain far apart until near the end of the film, because then it culminates in a big final epic showdown. But in this case, even though I like Halloween Ends, and we do technically get a final battle between them, it just wasn't the one that we deserved. I think if they were insistent on going in this direction with having this Corey character, I think it would have made more sense to have him introduced earlier on in the film series. Maybe in the first film, even make just for like a brief few minutes or so. Maybe he's friends with Laurie. Maybe he goes to the same school. Maybe have him even in Halloween Kills. Maybe he could have an encounter with Michael Myers that he survives. And then you could culminate that with the accident that occurs where he kills that kid by mistake. I think that would have been better. I think it would have been built more. And then people would have been expecting it, maybe not as been as disappointed. And then you could also have the whole Laurie and Michael thing going on at the same time, which maybe would have been a lot for them to do, but I think it could have worked. John Carpenter has said that he always saw Michael as more of a force than a man. And I think that's represented here in this series, especially in Halloween Kills and Ends. It's more about the aftermath of Michael's destruction. The anger and fear of the townfolk in Haddonfield grow in Halloween Kills as they cause a seemingly innocent man to fall to his death. And then once Michael Myers goes away, they project their fear and anger on Laurie because they blame her for Michael showing up to begin with. And then they also see Corey as their new monster slash boogeyman because he killed a child, even though it was an accident. Laurie and Corey are both extremely affected by Michael Myers, and they both handle it differently. For Laurie, she rises above it. For Corey, he is consumed by it. And Michael is the cause of it all. He's like a storm, just coming through the town of Haddonfield and just destroying it. So, how would I rate each film in this series? Well, Halloween 2018 was a much needed breath of fresh air. It made Halloween Halloween again. Rather than just do a straightforward remake, it restarted the series, which I think was a really good idea. I would give Halloween 2018 four skulls. Halloween Kills, for me, is my favorite. It has some really good scenes and some really cool kill scenes. And it's really nice seeing characters from the first film, Halloween 78, come back and make a return here. And I feel like out of all three films in the series, this one has the best opening and the best ending. I give Halloween Kills four skulls. Halloween Ends was a major shift in tone and story compared to the other two films in the series, and I don't think people were expecting that. While I like the idea of what they were trying to do, and I think the overall plot is interesting, it just feels really rushed compared to the other two films. It has some nice kills, and the score is, of course, excellent. I give Halloween Ends three skulls. What I find interesting about this series is how it has little remnants of the first three films in the original series. For example, Halloween 2018 has the basic plot of Halloween 1978, in that Michael Myers escapes, he's killing people, and his doctor is pursuing him, although with a slight plot twist. In Halloween Kills, like Halloween 2, Laurie is basically in the hospital the entire time, which I find kind of funny. It's funny how they kind of tie that in there. And then Halloween Ends, like Halloween 3, is this a complete departure from what the series originally was? What do you guys think about the Blumhouse Halloween film series? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's video, please smash the hell out of that like button. Well, guys, that's it for me. Remember, everyone is entitled to one good scare. Bye-bye.